There is a silent power in a woman who no longer seeks approval. She walks into a room, not to be seen, but simply to be. And somehow, that presence is felt more deeply than those who try too hard. True validation begins in a place that cannot be seen by others. It is not found in applause, in compliments, or in the fleeting approval of people who only witness fragments of your life. It is built quietly in the moments when you are alone with your thoughts, when there is no audience to impress and no expectation to fulfill. Most people spend years looking outward, hoping someone will confirm their worth, hoping to feel enough through the eyes of others. But the more they depend on this, the more unstable they become, because what comes from the outside can always be taken away. A woman who understands this starts to observe the pattern. She notices how praise can lift her for a moment, but just as quickly, a single negative comment can pull her down. She sees how dangerous it is to place her sense of self in the hands of others, people who are constantly changing, people who see her through their own biases, moods, and limitations. And slowly, she begins to question this dependency. She begins to ask herself why her value should fluctuate based on opinions that are not even rooted in her truth. This awareness does not arrive all at once. It grows through experience, through moments of rejection, through times when she gave her best, and it still was not enough for someone else. Instead of breaking her, these moments begin to teach her something deeper. They show her that external validation is inconsistent, and because of that, it cannot be trusted as a foundation for self-worth. So she turns inward. She begins to listen to herself more carefully, not the voice shaped by fear or doubt, but the quieter, more honest voice beneath it. She starts recognizing her efforts, even when no one else does. She acknowledges her growth, even when it goes unnoticed. She learns to sit with herself without immediately seeking distraction or reassurance. And in doing so, she builds a relationship with herself that is not dependent on the outside world. This is where real strength begins to form, because when validation comes from within, it is no longer fragile. It does not rise and fall with every opinion. It becomes steady, like a calm center that remains untouched, even when everything around it is uncertain. She no longer needs constant reminders of her worth because she has already accepted it, not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded, quiet understanding. She knows who she is, and that knowledge becomes her anchor. This changes how she moves through the world. She stops seeking approval in every interaction. She stops over-explaining herself just to be understood. She stops adjusting her personality to fit what she thinks others will accept. Instead, she becomes more natural, more at ease, because she is no longer performing. She is simply expressing. There is a certain freedom in this state, a lightness, because the pressure to be validated disappears. She is no longer waiting for someone to tell her she is enough. She already knows it, not as a belief she is trying to convince herself of, but as something she has experienced through reflection and honesty. And because of this, even when she is misunderstood, she remains steady. Even when she is not chosen, she does not question her value. She understands that not being accepted by everyone is not a reflection of her worth, but a natural part of being authentic in a world where not everyone is aligned. This inner validation becomes her foundation, quiet but powerful, invisible yet unshakable. There is a subtle but life-changing shift that happens when a woman stops asking, "Do they like me?" and begins asking, "Do I respect myself?" At first, this shift feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because for so long her attention has been directed outward. She has learned to read people's reactions, to adjust her words, her tone, even parts of her personality, just to maintain harmony and gain approval. It becomes a habit so deeply ingrained that she may not even realize how often she abandons herself in the process. People-pleasing often disguises itself as kindness, as being easy to be around, as being understanding. And while there is nothing wrong with kindness, the problem begins when it comes at the cost of self-respect, when she says yes while her mind is quietly resisting, when she tolerates behavior that feels wrong just to avoid conflict, when she silences her truth because she fears being disliked. In these moments, she may gain approval, but she loses something far more important: her alignment with herself. Over time, this creates an inner tension, a quiet discomfort that cannot always be explained, but is deeply felt. She may start to feel drained in certain relationships, not because others are demanding too much, but because she is giving more than what feels honest. She may feel unseen even when she is surrounded by people, because she is not truly showing who she is. And somewhere within, a question begins to form. At what point do I choose myself? This is where the shift begins. Instead of focusing on how she is perceived, she starts paying attention to how she feels after her decisions. Did she speak with honesty, or did she hold back out of fear? Did she agree because she wanted to, or because she didn't want to disappoint? Did she stay true to her values, or did she bend them just to maintain comfort? These questions guide her inward, helping her reconnect with a sense of integrity that had been overshadowed by the need for approval. Self-respect is not loud. It does not demand attention or recognition. It is quiet but firm. It shows itself in the way she carries herself, in the boundaries she sets, and in the choices she makes when no one is watching. It is the decision to walk away from what feels wrong, even if staying would be easier. It is the courage to say no, even when she knows it might disappoint someone. It is the discipline to remain aligned with her values, even when it costs her acceptance. As this self-respect grows, people-pleasing begins to fade, not because she becomes cold or distant, but because she becomes clear. Clear about what she stands for, what she will accept, and what she will no longer tolerate. She realizes that being liked by everyone is neither possible nor necessary. And more importantly, she understands that being liked at the expense of self-respect is never worth it. There is a certain strength in being able to stand in your truth without constantly seeking reassurance. She no longer needs to scan every room for approval. She no longer feels the urge to adjust herself to fit every expectation. Instead, she allows herself to be consistent, grounded in her own values, rather than shifting with the opinions around her. This does not mean she will never feel the pull to please others again. Old habits can resurface, especially in moments of pressure or uncertainty. But now she notices it, she pauses, and in that pause, she chooses differently. Not perfectly, but consciously. She begins to understand that respect from others often follows self-respect, not the other way around. When she honors herself, others can feel it, not because she demands respect, but because she embodies it. And even if some people walk away because she no longer fits their expectations, she remains steady. knowing she has not abandoned herself to keep them. In this way, self-respect becomes her foundation, not something she negotiates, not something she sacrifices, but something she protects with quiet strength. Emotional independence is a form of strength that is not immediately visible, yet it shapes every aspect of how a woman experiences life. It is the ability to remain steady within herself, regardless of what is happening around her. It does not mean she becomes distant or unfeeling. It means she no longer allows her emotions to be controlled by every external reaction, every opinion, or every shift in how others treat her. There was a time when her mood may have depended heavily on how she was perceived. A kind word could lift her, and a careless remark could linger in her mind for hours, sometimes days. She may have found herself replaying conversations, questioning her worth, wondering if she had said something wrong or if she had somehow not been enough. In those moments, her emotional state was not truly her own. It was influenced, shaped, and often destabilized by forces outside of her control. But with awareness comes change. She begins to notice how exhausting it is to live this way, always reacting, always adjusting, always seeking balance in an environment that is unpredictable. She starts to see that if her emotions are tied to everything around her, she will never feel stable. And so she begins the quiet work of reclaiming her inner space. This begins with observation. Instead of immediately reacting to what she feels, she pauses. She allows the emotion to be there without letting it define her. If someone criticizes her, she does not instantly absorb it as truth. She reflects. She asks herself if there is something valuable in it. And if not, she lets it pass without attaching her identity to it. If someone praises her, she appreciates it, but she does not cling to it as proof of her worth. She understands that both praise and criticism are temporary, often subjective, and rarely complete reflections of who she truly is. This shift creates distance between her and her emotional reactions. Not a cold distance, but a conscious one. She is still aware, still feeling, but no longer overwhelmed. She becomes less reactive and more responsive. Instead of being pulled in different directions by external influences, she begins to move from a place of inner stability. Emotional independence also means she takes responsibility for her own feelings. She no longer expects others to constantly reassure her, to fix her mood, or to validate her experiences. She understands that while connection with others is important, her emotional foundation must come from within. This realization gives her a sense of control, not over others, but over herself. There is a quiet confidence that emerges from this state. She no longer fears disapproval in the same way, because she knows it will not break her. She no longer depends on constant attention to feel secure, because her sense of self is not built on it. She becomes less attached to outcomes, less anxious about how things will unfold, because she trusts her ability to remain grounded no matter what happens. This does not mean she will never feel hurt, disappointed, or affected by others. She is still human. But the difference is in how long she stays there and how deeply it defines her. She feels, she processes, and then she returns to herself. She does not get lost in it. Over time, this emotional independence changes the way she relates to the world. She listens more, reacts less. She observes more, assumes less. She becomes more present because her mind is no longer constantly occupied with seeking approval or fearing judgment. Her energy becomes calmer, more stable, and people can sense this, even if they cannot explain it. It is not a loud transformation. It is not something she needs to announce. But it is powerful. Because when a woman is emotionally independent, she is no longer easily shaken. She becomes anchored within herself, able to face both acceptance and rejection without losing her balance. Clarity in values and boundaries does not appear suddenly. It is developed through experience, reflection, and a willingness to be honest with oneself. In the beginning, a woman may move through life guided more by expectations than by intention. She adapts to what others consider right, acceptable, or admirable, often without questioning whether those standards truly align with who she is. This lack of clarity can lead her into situations where she uncomfortably misunderstood or quietly conflicted, even if everything appears fine on the surface. Over time, these inner conflicts begin to reveal something important. They show her that without a clear understanding of her own values, she becomes easily influenced by the values of others. She may say yes when she means no, tolerate behavior that does not sit well with her, or remain in environments that slowly drain her energy. Not because she is weak, but because she has not yet defined where she stands. This is where the process begins. She starts to pay attention to what feels right and what does not based on convenience, but based on a deeper sense of alignment. She reflects on her experiences, noticing which situations bring her a sense of peace and which create tension within her. She begins to ask herself simple but powerful questions. What do I truly value? What kind of behavior do I respect? What am I no longer willing to accept? No matter the circumstances. These questions guide her toward clarity. Her values become less about what sounds good and more about what feels true. They are no longer borrowed from others, but shaped through her own understanding. She may come to value honesty, not just in others, but in how she expresses herself. She may value respect, not just as something she receives, but as something she practices toward herself. She may value peace, choosing not to engage in unnecessary conflict or environments that disrupt her inner balance. As these values become clearer, boundaries begin to form naturally. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate her from the world. They are guidelines that protect her well-being. They define how she allows others to treat her and how she chooses to engage with the world around her. Without boundaries, even the strongest values can be easily compromised. But with them, her values gain structure and strength. Setting boundaries, however, is not always easy. It often requires her to do things that feel uncomfortable at first. She may need to say no when she is used to saying yes. She may need to distance herself from people or situations that no longer align with her values. She may face misunderstanding, resistance, or even disappointment from others who were accustomed to her previous flexibility, but she begins to understand that discomfort is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is a sign that she is growing, that she is stepping out of patterns that no longer serve her. She learns to sit with that discomfort without immediately retreating back into old habits. With time, her boundaries become more natural, less forced. She does not need to explain them excessively or defend them with long justifications. They are expressed calmly, clearly, and without hostility. She understands that those who respect her will honor them, and those who do not reveal where they stand. This clarity changes the way she moves through relationships. She no longer enters spaces hoping to be accepted at any cost. Instead, she observes whether those spaces align with her values. She becomes more selective, not out of fear or judgment, but out of self-awareness. She recognizes that not every connection is meant to be maintained, and not every opportunity is meant to be accepted. There is a quiet confidence in knowing where you stand. It removes the constant inner negotiation, the back and forth between what you feel and what you allow. When a woman is clear in her values and firm in her boundaries, her decisions become simpler. Not always easier, but more aligned. She no longer needs to seek constant guidance from others because she has created a framework within herself. A framework that supports her, grounds her, and allows her to move through life with a sense of direction that is not easily shaken by external influence. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she begins to feel the weight of constantly trying to prove herself, prove her worth, her intelligence, her kindness, her value. It can show up in subtle ways, explaining too much, overworking to gain recognition, seeking to be understood by those who have already decided not to see her clearly. At first, it may feel necessary, as if her effort will eventually lead to acceptance. But over time, it becomes exhausting, because no matter how much she proves, it never truly feels like enough. This is because the need to prove oneself is often rooted in a deeper uncertainty, a quiet belief that if she does not demonstrate her worth, it might go unnoticed or unacknowledged. So she tries harder. She gives more. She stretches herself to meet expectations that may not even belong to her. And in doing so, she slowly disconnects from her natural state, replacing authenticity with performance. But something begins to shift when she starts to question this pattern. She notices how much energy is spent trying to convince others, how much time is lost in explaining her intentions, justifying her decisions, or seeking approval from people who may never offer it. She begins to see that those who truly understand her do not require constant proof, and those who demand it are often not open to understanding her in the first place. This realization creates space for a different approach. Instead of trying to be seen, she focuses on being aligned. Instead of trying to be accepted, she focuses on being real. She begins to understand that her value does not increase by proving it, and it does not decrease when others fail to recognize it. It simply exists independent of external acknowledgement. Letting go of the need to prove does not mean she stops growing or striving. It means her actions are no longer driven by the need for validation. She still puts effort into what matters to her, but the intention is different. It comes from a place of purpose, not from a desire to be approved. She works because it fulfills her, not because she needs to show that she is capable. She speaks because she has something to express, not because she needs to defend herself. This shift brings a sense of calm. She no longer feels the urgency to respond to every misunderstanding. She no longer feels the pressure to correct every false perception. She understands that not everyone will see her clearly, and she becomes at peace with that. Instead of chasing clarity in the minds of others, she maintains clarity within herself. There is strength in this restraint, because it takes discipline to remain silent when you feel misunderstood. It takes confidence to walk away without explaining yourself fully. It takes awareness to recognize when proving your point will not change anything. She begins to choose her energy carefully, investing it only where it is respected and received. Over time, her presence changes. She becomes less reactive, less eager to justify herself. Her words carry more weight because they are not used excessively. Her actions speak more than her explanations because they are consistent and grounded in her values. People may not always understand her, but they can feel her certainty. And that certainty is not built on the opinions of others. It is built on her own understanding of who she is. She accepts that being misunderstood is part of living authentically. That not every space will recognize her value and not every person will appreciate her presence. But instead of trying to change that, she allows it to filter her environment. Those who resonate will stay. Those who do not will naturally fall away. This is where freedom begins to take shape. Because when a woman no longer feels the need to prove herself, she reclaims her energy. She is no longer performing, no longer seeking approval, no longer chasing validation through explanation. She simply lives in alignment with herself, allowing her life to reflect her truth without forcing it upon anyone. Choosing peace over approval is one of the quietest yet most powerful transformations a woman can go through. It is not a loud decision, nor is it something that happens in a single moment. It is a gradual realization that constant approval from others is not worth the cost of inner disturbance. At first, she may not even recognize how often she sacrifices her own peace just to be accepted, included, or understood. She may enter conversations she does not want to be part of, stay in situations that feel uncomfortable, or tolerate energy that unsettles her, all for the sake of maintaining connection or avoiding disapproval. But over time, something within her begins to shift. She starts to notice the difference between moments that bring her calm and moments that leave her drained. She becomes aware of how certain environments, relationships, or expectations disturb her inner balance. And slowly, she begins to understand that peace is not something that happens around her. It is something that exists within her, and it can be protected or lost depending on her choices. This awareness changes the way she responds to the world. Instead of reacting immediately to every situation, she begins to pause. She asks herself a simple question: does this bring me peace, or does it take it away? And this question becomes more important than the need to be liked or accepted, because she realizes that approval from others is often conditional, but peace is deeply personal. It cannot be outsourced, negotiated, or permanently given by anyone else. There are moments when choosing peace means stepping away from conversations that turn into conflict, stepping away from people who thrive on chaos or misunderstanding, stepping away from environments that constantly demand she shrink, explain, or defend herself. These decisions are not always easy because they may come with judgment or misunderstanding, but she begins to see that staying in discomfort just to be accepted creates a deeper internal conflict that lingers long after the situation is over. So she learns to prioritize her internal state over external acceptance. This does not mean she avoids all challenges or disagreements. It means she no longer allows unnecessary chaos to occupy her emotional space. She becomes more selective with her energy. She understands that not every invitation needs to be accepted. Not every opinion needs to be engaged with. And not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Some things are simply not worth disturbing her peace for. As this understanding deepens, her reactions become more measured. She no longer feels the urge to prove herself in heated moments. She no longer feels obligated to defend her choices to everyone. Instead, she chooses silence when it protects her calm. She chooses distance when it preserves her clarity. She chooses stillness when engagement would only create tension without resolution. There is strength in this kind of restraint because choosing peace requires her to trust herself enough to let go of the need for constant external validation. It requires her to accept that not everyone will understand her choices, and that misunderstanding does not automatically mean she is wrong. She learns to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it or escape it. And in doing so, she becomes less reactive and more grounded. Over time, people begin to notice a shift in her presence. She feels calmer, less easily disturbed by external noise. She does not engage in unnecessary drama, nor does she allow herself to be pulled into emotional turbulence that does not belong to her. Her boundaries become clearer, not harsh, but firm. Her energy becomes more intentional, even in situations where she is not fully understood or appreciated. She remains steady because she is no longer measuring her worth through approval. She is measuring her well-being through peace. And with this shift, something important becomes clear. Approval can change from person to person, situation to situation, but peace, once prioritized and protected, becomes a stable foundation she can return to again and again, regardless of what is happening around her. In the end, the journey of a woman who no longer seeks validation is not about becoming distant from the world, but about becoming deeply connected to herself. She does not reject people, nor does she isolate herself from life. Instead, she learns where to place her energy and, more importantly, where not to lose it. She realizes that true strength was never about being liked by everyone or being understood by all. It was always about remaining whole within herself, even when she is misunderstood, even when she is not chosen, even when she is not seen the way she deserves to be seen. What once felt like rejection no longer defines her. What once felt like silence no longer shakes her. What once felt like distance no longer disturbs her peace, because she is no longer living from a place of external validation. She is living from inner alignment, and in that alignment, she becomes steady. Not because life becomes easier, but because she becomes clearer. Clear about who she is, what she values, and what she will no longer compromise. She no longer bends to fit every expectation, nor does she shrink to make others comfortable. She stands in her truth quietly, without needing to announce it. There is a calm power in her presence now, a sense that she is no longer searching for something outside herself to complete her. She has returned to herself, and in that return, she finds enoughness that does not depend on approval. And that is where freedom begins.